In today's episode, I'm doing a follow-up to the Flower and Garden Festival, as well as sharing a cool story about who I ran into from the Disney Channel.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
You are listening to the Main Street Magic Podcast with your hosts, Jeremy Stein and John Marone. Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, with just me, myself, and I today. In today's episode, I'll give a quick follow-up to the 2018 Flower and Garden Festival. If you haven't listened to our preview on episode 53, make sure you go back and take a listen. It's okay. I'll wait. Please visit us on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at mainstmagic. So I went down Wednesday opening day on February 28th to check out the Flower and Garden Festival and eat my way around the World Showcase, try out all the new food offerings, as well as some drinks, so that I could come back and let you guys know what I thought. As we talked about back in episode 3, when John and I gave our preview of what we were looking forward to, just make sure that you really plan ahead. I had actually made kind of a detailed list that I was able to easily access through Google on my phone of the items I wanted to try at each booth. So I at least had some sort of plan going in there. I also made sure that I took cash so that I wouldn't overspend, because we know how quickly all of these items can add up. One thing I do want to talk about before I get into the actual food, if you follow us on Twitter at mainstmagic, those are mostly my tweets, and I was certainly giving kind of a play-by-play of that entire day. And I was fairly negative overall about the experience that I had on opening day. And now that I've come home and waited a few days to kind of, reflect, it really probably wasn't as bad as I made it out to be. But I do believe that there's a fine line between being negative and being honest. So I hope that day that it came off more as just being honest. And I actually woke up that next morning and just felt bad about how negative I had been the day before, because I'm usually not that way. I'm an extremely positive person. So I've made it a point to be much more positive, but make sure that I am being honest. And that's what I'm going to do as I run through the things that I tried today. So the first note, and again, if I'm going to be honest, like I just talked about, I do wish that they would come up with a system for the booths that they use at a normal quick service restaurant. And what I mean by that is you're going to stand in line, and on opening day, the lines were not too bad when I got there around noon. I did see them start to fill up as the day went on, of course, but I know that the weekends are going to be jam-packed, and that's where this is going to be an issue that I'm about to talk about. You wait in the line to place your order with somebody at the register. They ring you up, you pay, they hand you your receipt. The people inside the booth who are preparing the food have no idea what you've ordered until you then physically hand them that receipt. Now, while most items are already made and they just need to be plated, it still can take a little bit of time. So the fact that you may wait behind 5 people to place an order, then wait behind those same 5 people as they're handing their receipt over, and then they're actually plating, you can spend a good amount of time at some of these booths. At a typical quick service restaurant anywhere in Disney, or pretty much anywhere in the world for that matter, if you go to a fast food chain, when the item is entered into the register, it is then put up on a screen and a ticket is created back in the kitchen. I do wish that they would implement something similar with these booths, because I do think it would make things move along just a bit quicker. With something like 16 booths at Flower and Garden, and we know there's upwards of 30 or so at Food and Wine, if you only have one day to experience one of these festivals, you don't want to spend a lot of time waiting in line. So just wanted to touch on that point real quick, because as we've always said in the past, it's about expectations. And if you expect that this is the way the lines and the process and you getting your food is going to go, I hope that will help set you up so that you're not disappointed when you do spend a few extra minutes at those booths. So I got down to Epcot and inside a little close to 12 o'clock. So I went ahead and started in Mexico. And usually we start in Canada and we work counterclockwise around. For whatever reason, I just decided I was going to start in Mexico today. I hadn't eaten all day. I was starving, and I had my eyes on the pork taco, which was the slow braised pork taco served with an apple relish, goat cheese, and a chili de árbol sauce. This was very, very good, as you would come to expect from the Mexican booth and being a taco. The pork was very well cooked, very tender, had a great spice to it. And then the sweetness of the apple relish and the goat cheese, the cool goat cheese, really balanced out those spicy flavors. Upon first look, I noticed there was not a lot of goat cheese, and I was kind of almost disappointed, but it has such a strong flavor to it that they didn't need a ton. So the balance was absolutely perfect. And then I went ahead and had a Daisy spicy beer, which I would go ahead and skip if I were you. There's not much to it. It didn't have any real specific notes or flavors that I could pick out. So next, headed over to Bowen Market Farmers Market over in Germany, and I had my eyes set on the toasted pretzel bread topped with Black Forest ham and melted Gruyere cheese. This was awesome. And at $5, while it is not a huge portion, it was still very filling and outstanding for $5. Pretzel was cooked perfectly. Tasted exactly like the big giant pretzels you get over in Germany anyway. And then it came stuffed with Black Forest ham and a cheese sauce, and then had melted Gruyere cheese on top. And this was probably, one of the best dishes that I had all day. Absolutely loved this. And next made my way over, and you'll notice as I go through, I did not stop and eat at every booth. I took pictures of every booth and the menus, and I was starting out first with the things I really wanted to try. And then if I was still hungry later, I thought I would kind of, go back through and hit what I missed. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So next was the Smokehouse Barbecue and Brews over at the American Adventure. This was a beef brisket, burnt ends, and smoked pork belly slider. Had garlic sausage, chorizo, cheddar fondue, and then unfortunately a house-made pickle on top. Quickly grabbed that sucker, just threw it at somebody walking by because I didn't want that thing. But the rest of this sandwich was amazing. I love good, well done burnt ends. These were perfect. The pork belly was nice and tender. And then the garlic sausage and the chorizo with the cheddar fondue was actually skewered on top of the bun. The bun was very, very good. I can't say enough good things about this. I got the Central 28 Brewing Company Sunshine Greetings Orange Hibiscus Wheat Ale to go along with it. To me, you can't really mess up a orange hibiscus wheat ale, so this was delicious. It was refreshing, and it paired perfectly with that sandwich. Now, I don't understand why they can't put a permanent quick service barbecue place in America. Anybody who has never been to America and they come over and they go to the American Pavilion, and they, every other pavilion has food based very specific around that culture and around that country. America over at that Liberty Inn is nothing but crappy hamburgers, chicken fingers, and frozen French fries. I understand that's a pretty big fixture in American food, but I wouldn't say that is how you would want to represent America to other countries and nationalities that have maybe never been, and Disney is really their only representation that they get. If they could just blow that place out and put in a legit smokehouse with barbecue and good American craft beers, they would have an absolute home run, and I think they would truly represent America. So those first three items I had were outstanding. Very, very good. And then it decided to pretty much go downhill from there, which again, if you followed along on Twitter, you will notice. One of the things I was really looking forward to was at Hanami over in Japan, and that was the ginger beef yaki udon. So this was thin sliced beef, onions, and noodles tossed on the grill with soy and ginger. And at $6.50 is actually a really good portion. It comes in one of those kind of cardboard boats or tubs. A lot of noodles, good portion of the shaved beef. And this is where I would start to notice a trend with the rest of the food. Everything was bland. It tasted the same. There were no real discernible differences between the beef and the noodles, and even the onions. Everything just tasted the same, and it didn't taste that great, and it was extremely bland. Now, Katsura Grill is one of my favorite quick service places in Epcot, and they have this same thin sliced beef with teriyaki that's done extremely well. So I don't know why they couldn't do that at this booth. So then I went ahead too, and we had talked about the Sapporo draft beer in a Kampai cup. And if you go back to episode 53, you can hear a little bit more about that. So I ordered that, but I noticed on the menu it just said Sapporo draft beer. There was no cup. There was nothing special about it. So I was a little disappointed. I ordered that. I'm not a huge Sapporo fan, to be honest. I much prefer a Kirin as far as the Japanese beer goes. So I would probably skip that unless you're just a huge fan of Sapporo. And then I moved on to probably the most disappointing dish of the day, which was at the Primavera Kitchen in Italy. And I went for the Maine lobster ravioli with vodka sauce. And this is the highest priced menu item anywhere in Flower and Garden, and I'd venture to probably say this is one of the highest priced menu items out of any of the festivals. Now, when you read Maine lobster ravioli with vodka sauce, you're thinking, all right, $12 probably isn't that bad. This should be a really good, rich dish. You know, when we're talking lobster and vodka sauce, that could be expensive anyway. What you got were 2 pieces of ravioli. So do the math. You're talking $6 a piece, you know, or per ravioli. It was covered in a very thin vodka sauce. And then it had some halved cherry tomatoes that looked like somebody had cut them in half with their eyes closed because they were more like on a 70-30 cut. And then it had 2 shoots on top of it. I don't even know what kind of, you know, flowery plant shoot they were. But here is everything that was wrong with that dish. The only thing that was right was that the actual pasta was good and it was cooked well. Inside of the pasta, you got lobster seafood mush. Tasted very much like the ocean. Had no real lobster flavor, and there were certainly no chunks. This was something that had just been mashed to death before it had been put into that ravioli. Why they are having these booths and not making fresh items, I'm not sure, because this was 100% a frozen ravioli bought in bulk. The same type I can get if I go to Costco or even if I go up to our local Publix. I can buy these raviolis and for a lot cheaper, and I'm probably not going to have as high of a expectation on how it's going to taste. Again, very thin, almost flavorless vodka sauce. There was no seasoning in it. And then the tomatoes weren't cooked. So you had a warm sauce and a warm ravioli, and as you mix it with this tomato, you got this cold burst of raw tomato flavor, which did not fit. And then whoever put the shoots on top should just find a new job because they had absolutely no business being on here as well. This was an absolute miss from beginning to end and was a huge disappointment. So after having that, I thought, you know, let's continue to walk through. Let's find something else I'm really looking forward to. I'm disappointed in the lobster, but I know that there's seared scallops over in Canada, and traditionally they have done scallops really, really well at the festivals. Back at the Festival of the Arts, the scallop over in the American Pavilion was one of the best items I've ever had at a festival. So these you got 2 scallops. They were a little bit smaller than the previous one from the American Adventure, where you only got 1. Scallops were seasoned well. They were seared on the outside. They were tender on the inside. But the problem with this dish is that it didn't all work together. I would have much rather just had a bowl of scallops and been done because they were seasoned well. They laid over top of French green beans, which were probably fresh green beans, but some of them were way overcooked. Some of them were undercooked. And again, no seasoning. Butter potatoes, and then they had a brown butter vinaigrette and applewood smoked bacon. The brown butter vinaigrette was so overpowering that when you paired it with the scallops, it completely destroyed the flavor of the scallops. And the applewood smoked bacon, I watched her pull it out of a tub, which was filled with either grease or water, so it was not crispy bacon. It was just floppy and not very good. Now at $6.50, again, the pricing on this is not too bad, but if I'm going to pay $6.50, I just want a meal, you know, and an item that's going to work well together. After this, I headed over to the Honey Bistro, which is hosted by the National Honey Board in Showcase Plaza, and I was really, really excited about the Honey Tandoori Chicken Flatbread. This had white cheddar cheese, charred vegetables, clover honey, sour cream, and micro watercress, and only $5.25. So the trend you're noticing, other than that horrible ravioli, is that the pricing on these is really good. It's much lower than the other festivals, so I think you have an opportunity to eat a lot more and definitely not spend as much. This is another one, it just missed on all levels. Chicken was overcooked, so it was not tender. It had zero tandoori flavor to it. I mean, none. There was a little bit of white cheddar cheese and the tiniest, sprinkling of the clover honey sour cream. Again, overall, just bland flavors. None of it worked together to create a better dish. So after basically just, dropping $12, let's say $18.50 after Canada, add another $5.25 on that. I'm not a math major. You can break out your own calculator, but well over $20 on the last 3 meals of pure disappointment. I decided I would hit up the United Kingdom and get their cider flight. So with that, you're going to get a Mackenzie's Black Cherry Hard Cider. You're going to get a Florida Beer Company Blood Orange Tropical Hard Cider, and then you're going to get Cider Boys Grand Mimosa Apple Orange Hard Cider. All 3 of these were amazing. I would recommend getting either the flight or individually purchasing just one of these 3. No one was better than the other. All 3 were really, really good. So at this point in the day, I'd been walking around. I had actually done some recording earlier in the day. I had relaxed. I had grabbed a Schopenhofer, over in Germany. Also had grabbed a Moosehead Radler, which is one of my new favorite beers that has slight hints of grape to it, over in Canada, and that is available on draft there now at the little popcorn cart as soon as you enter. So I would go get one of those. Opened up my wallet and thinking, man, I've spent a lot of money and these last couple items have just not been good. And I was disappointed overall. And as I mentioned before, you didn't move through any of the booths very quickly. While the first 3 items I had were very good, they were not good enough to offset how bad the next 3 items I had were. So I decided I was not going to spend any more money on any of the food booths. And I took a walk out of the International Gateway and I headed over to the boardwalk area and thought, I'm just going to, I'm going to sit, I'm going to relax, I'm going to grab myself a beer. Maybe I'll get something to eat over here. And I popped into Abracadabra. Now, if you remember from a previous trip review, we had gone there for my birthday before Flying Fish, and it was Rhonda, my wife, and I, John and his wife, Michelle. And we had sat on one of the little couches, and we had a couple drinks, and we didn't think too much of the place. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. We didn't have anything to eat, so we certainly couldn't talk about the food, but the atmosphere was very cool. So I sat at the bar, and I got to be a part of some of the best conversation and sarcasm and hilarity that I've had sitting at any bar or lounge in Disney. There were a few other people at the bar with me. One of them actually worked for Disney in the food business. Another one was there on business for whatever he does in his job. And then there was a retired couple who are DVC members. And the interaction between the 2 bartenders, and then they had somebody in training who was earning their ears, was great. If you've ever been to Dick's Last Resort restaurant, where the whole point of that restaurant is for them to kind of harp on you and almost, kind of treat you poorly, this was done in a similar fashion, but all based around like kind of just sarcasm and just having fun. It was like sitting at a friend's house and asking them to grab you a beer. And it was done in a very tasteful way where we just had a blast interacting back and forth with these bartenders. It was so much fun. So I sat there for a while talking to them, talking to the other patrons that were coming and going, and really, really enjoyed that. I had a Kentucky Bourbon Brown Ale, vanilla, which I didn't know the vanilla existed. The Kentucky Bourbon Ale is one of my favorites that you can get over in the American Pavilion at that little beer booth that sits right outside as soon as you're walking in past the funnel cake cart. And it was good. I would probably still go with the standard Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, but having those little hints of vanilla was not bad. So I made my way out of there and went over to check out Jelly Rolls because it was about 6:45, and I knew that they opened at 7, and I really wanted to maybe go inside and check it out for a bit. But I was hoping that maybe within the first hour or so they wouldn't charge a cover because I didn't want to stick around too long because it had already been a very long and hot day. So I went up and talked to the lady, and she let me know that they open at 7. Music doesn't start till 8, and it's a $15 cover. So for me, that just wasn't going to be worth paying the $15 and sticking around for over an hour just to maybe wait for 30 minutes. So I hopped into Big River Grill and sat at the bar and had a Beer Mosa, which is their sour beer that they make right there on site. Very, very good if you like sour beers. One thing I did find out from there is that they do not have I think he called it a walking license. So I wanted to have the beer to go, and they're not allowed to pour that into a to-go cup for you to take out on the boardwalk like many of the other locations and bars in that area can. So again, just something to note. So I wrapped up there and walked back up through Epcot. I hopped onto Test Track, which at 9 p.m. when Illumination starts, they completely shut down single rider line. And obviously you can't get fast passes, but I walked right through the standby queue and basically right onto the ride. So rode that, went to the front, and took the bus over to All-Star Movie Resort where I was staying. And I ended up in a preferred room on the 3rd level, and when I walked in, I realized I had a king bed, which I was not aware that I was getting, which was great. And I noticed the room is huge. And so I go and I walk into the bathroom, and I realized that I had been given a handicap room. So the bathroom is huge. The room was much bigger. It had the king bed, a really, really nice room. It still has its old school All-Star movie theming, which I absolutely love. And I know that Disney's going to come through, and they're going to do that Pop Century refurb where they strip all theming from the room and basically make it like a hospital room. So I am a little bit disappointed that I'm sure that's what will come to there. Even though they need updates and those rooms need to be refurbed, I just wish they would continue to give the small hints of movies and theming within them. So the next morning I got up. I was going to head to Animal Kingdom for a little bit before I had to get home and get the kids out of school. So I had a fast pass for Navi River Journey. I had planned this trip a little bit later, so I was not able to get a flight of passage. Plus, if I had ridden Flight of Passage, my family would have killed me because they do not want me going on that without them. It is our family's favorite ride and something the 4 of us really, really enjoy doing. And I know Navi gets a bad rap because of the fact that it's very, very short. And I get that. It is a short ride. And if I had waited 2 hours for it, I would be disappointed as well. But if you're able to get there early and wait under 30 minutes, or you do get a fast pass because maybe it's a second day that you're at Animal Kingdom and you already did Flight of Passage, you would probably still want to do it again, but I'm just saying, or, you just couldn't get that Flight of Passage. Navi is so well done. I get that it doesn't really tell a story, and I get that if maybe you haven't seen Avatar, you're not going to get what any of this stuff is, but it's just done so well. And obviously that animatronic at the end of the shaman is the most mind-blowing animatronic I have ever seen in my entire life. So again, I wouldn't wait a long, long time for this, but I certainly think it is worth a ride if you can get in there in under 30 minutes or get yourself a fast pass. Went and rode Dinosaur and actually did Kilimanjaro Safari, which I didn't have a fast pass for, but it was about a 15-minute wait, which was great. So it was nice to get in there. Sat in the front row next to a kid with a camera who had no idea what personal space was. I'm pretty sure like half of my head is probably in 90% of the photos he took, which always makes me laugh when people take photos of every single animal there, because I don't know how much those come up again in your life. I don't know if 10 years later, when you're thinking, let's go back and reflect on our Disney vacation, here's a blurry picture of a giraffe. I don't know. My wife loves taking photos of animals at the zoo, and I just kind of tell her, like, look, if you want to see a lion in the future, just Google it. It's going to basically look the exact same. But anyway, that's a whole other episode on, I guess, animal photo taking etiquette. So if you're not familiar with Disney Channel shows, or maybe you don't watch everything on there, there was a great show years ago called Jessie, and it was about a nanny that had been hired. It was a very wealthy family that had several adopted children, and this was their nanny that took care of them. It's a good, cheesy Disney Channel show, and that lasted for a couple seasons, and then they had a spinoff which is called Bunked, and that is about how these kids now go off to summer camp, and they introduce some new characters, and this has become an absolute family favorite for us. Rhonda and I and the kids, we will watch this, and the kids have seen each episode several times. They know the theme song by heart. They love these characters, and it's a great family show that to me is much more in the sitcom style of kind of the 80s and stuff like Full House that I grew up with. So we really enjoy watching this together. So back in January, my daughter Kaylin had gotten a Camp Kikiwaka shirt for her birthday. And Camp Kikiwaka, if you don't watch the show, is the actual summer camp that they go to in Bunked. So she got the shirt. Rhonda and I loved it. We decided to order our own. And I packed it for this trip, and I just thought, all right, camp, Animal Kingdom, outdoors, I'm going to wear my Camp Kikiwaka shirt there, to Animal Kingdom that day. This is one we ordered off of like Cafe Press. It's not something that Disney sells, so there's not like there's a ton of these going through the parks, and I have a feeling most people wouldn't even know what it was, which is another reason I kind of like it. It's a conversation starter for anybody who's familiar with the show. So I'm walking over to Everest, and I had a fast pass for later, but I thought, let me check out the single rider line. And as I'm walking, I look over and I see lined up tons of carts, and there's camera equipment and Pelican cases, which will hold the camera equipment. And I see a few people with lanyards, and I just figure, well, it's Disney. They're always filming or doing something. So I go and I get in the single rider line. And as I'm in the single rider line, I happen to look to my right, and I notice just beyond, in a more of a cast member only area, but still visible, are a whole bunch of people. And I see one with a GoPro, and I noticed somebody with makeup, and they're doing makeup on somebody. And then I realized that it is Miranda May and Karen Brar from Bunked, who play Lou and Ravi. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm here wearing my Camp Kikiwaka shirt. There are two of the stars of Bunked over there. They're literally getting ready to film a scene for what I can assume is going to be season 3, which should be coming out, I guess, about this summer. So I'm texting Rhonda, and I'm like, you will not believe this, using a few choice words that I'm not going to say on air because this is a family show, but I'm like, this is crazy. So she's freaking out on her end, and she says, you have to get a picture with them. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do that. They're over there. They're surrounded by like an entourage of the director, and it looks like, makeup people and almost like their handlers. So I get ready, go in my single rider, and I'm hopping on the next train. And I noticed they're going to stop the one after me to let Miranda and Karen on, and they're going to leave several empty seats in front of them so that the film crew can get in and film them on the ride. So I go through and ride the ride, and I get out and I wait. I scan my Magic Band to get my picture from PhotoPass, and I wait and think, well, if they hop out and they come through this way, I'm going to see if I can get a picture. When's this chance going to happen again? So I watch them get off, and just the guy who was filming walks in and taps his Magic Band to get their picture, and he walks back out, and they're all escorted by their crew and cast members into a different door that is, not allowed by the general public. So I walk out of the store, and they had set up, and they were actually filming as the train comes out where it takes your PhotoPass picture, I'm assuming for the show, as some B-roll. And I turn around, and here come Miranda and Karen and their group, and she notices me. I'm 6'3", 215, so I stand out sometimes in a crowd, and she points at my shirt and says, "Oh my God, look at his shirt." And both her and Karen walk up to me, and I just said, we're huge fans of your show. Our family loves to watch you guys. I'm here by myself. I'm not with my kids, but is there any chance I could get a photo to show them? And they were so gracious. They were so nice to take a photo with me, which you can go out to Maine ST Magic and see. And it was almost like they were excited that there was a fan of the show there wearing a shirt from the show. So it was just such a cool experience. And I don't consider myself someone to get starstruck. Like, if I had seen, I feel like Will Ferrell there, I don't think I would have been as excited as I did to see these two that we have watched, over and over again with our family. Like this is, every night it is before we go to bed, the kids say, can we just watch an episode of Bunked? And it's something that the four of us can sit and watch and really enjoy and laugh and kind of forget about everything that's going on in the world. It's that 30 minutes, per night that we have, and it just happens to be around this show. So seeing that was literally just one of the coolest things. And it seemed like Disney magic or by chance that I would wear that shirt today, that I would run into them, that they would point me out that I'm wearing the shirt. So I decided before I headed home, I went on to Walgreens.com and I sent the photo to Walgreens and had an 8x10 photo printed, picked up a cheap frame and put it in there. And I wrapped it as a present and told the kids I got them something when they got home. And this was a little bit of their reaction. So if you can't tell, I had one child who was extremely excited for me and another who thought that I went down there on purpose without her to intentionally meet those two. But after I let Lacey know that it was just by absolute chance, she was happy for me as well. Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me today. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me ramble on by myself. John will be back soon so we can record some more killer episodes to help you plan your Disney vacation. If you haven't already, make sure you go out and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Seriously, I know I keep harping on this, but it really will help the show grow, and it'll help listeners of other podcasts find our show because we will rate higher when you do that for us. As always, go out to mainstmagic.com, as well as like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at mainstmagic. That's all I've got. We'll see you real soon.